So hey guys, my name is SollyBless Africa. So I'm the host of this podcast. So welcome so much. I'm so privileged to have Yvette Ngasia, they call her Madam CEO, as my guest today. So Yvette is, actually I don't have to introduce her. Let me just give her an opportunity to introduce herself. Then after that we shall continue to Yvette.
Yes, thank you so much everyone for having me here today. I'm so glad to be here. My name is Yvette Ngasia. As he has just said, they call me Madam CEO, and today we are going to even understand why they call me Madam CEO. I'm so glad to be here, and I just can't wait for the unfolding that will take place in this podcast today. So stay tuned because we have amazing things for you. Thank you.
Wow, wow, thank you so much. So our podcast today, we shall be talking about identity. It's very important to know yourself. So Yvette, I hear of identity and also hear of identity crisis, right? So can you just brief us on these two?
Okay.
So that at least we know what these two things are. We differentiate about identity and also identity crisis.
Thank you so much for that, Solite. So what is identity? What is identity crisis? And these are some of the questions that most of us struggle to understand even as we transition into our various life episodes and moments, as we transition into growth. So allow me say identity is who you are as a person or as an individual. And who you are is what leads you to your purpose. When we are talking about identity crisis, it is the state of you not knowing who you are. In short, in Swahili we say kama hujijui, hujielewi in short. So that is identity crisis, and that is the difference. So a person is in a crisis when they actually don't understand who they are, and a person who knows who they are, then they have actually found their identity.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's so great. So it's a state of just identity crisis. It's just a state of you being confused.
Yeah.
You don't know who you meant to be.
Yeah.
You don't know who you are.
Yes.
Wow, that's very nice.
Thank you.
So Yvette, what really started the hunger in you that you are so much passionate of letting people know themselves, which is a very good work. Yeah.
So what started up my passion to journey into the journey of identity and even start ID Yangu Kenya, which is an organization I run on matters to do with identity, is the rate of suicidal rates in Kenya and even in the world, the rates of depression, the rates of people just losing themselves. But I started my journey into identity back in high school when I could see young people just get depressed, and I wondered, what is this that people are depressed about? What leads a young person, or even not, because identity is all rounded, it's not only for young people, even adults, even elderly people just struggle with identity. So I asked myself, what is this that is leading people to go kill themselves? What is this that people are trying to seek? Why are people not contented with the things they have? Why should a person go to the extent of maybe using drugs or getting into peer pressure? And I realized one thing: everyone is seeking to know who they are. And that's why you will find the world being very competitive, because everyone is seeking to answer the question, who am I? Why was I born, and why am I here? So in the process of people seeking to answer these questions, then they tend to also be in the wrong places. Because we have a lot of mentors, but only few will talk about identity. You'll realize mentors talking about purpose, talking about vision, but they never tie this thing. You can only find purpose when you find identity. You can only build up a vision or write down a vision when you understand identity. And that is what stirred up my passion, because I wanted to show people, I wanted to show the world that, you know what, the real answer lies in you finding your identity. Allow me conclude that question by saying this: identity is the vehicle to your destiny. Identity is the driver of the vehicle to your destiny. People call purpose the vehicle, but a vehicle cannot exist without a driver. So identity is the one that is driving this vehicle, and that is purpose. So once you find your identity, you will have found your purpose.
Wow, that's so great. Actually, what I'm learning from up to where I've reached is actually identity is the pathway to your purpose. Okay, and so Yvette, where was your turning point as far as knowing your identity is concerned, or as far as knowing yourself is concerned?
Okay, my turning point. Wow. Hey, they say that God breaks you to build you. So for me to venture into identity, it was a season whereby I was broken. I was like the point of a phoenix when it burns down to ashes. So that was my turning point back in Form 3 in high school. And I was this kind of a person who I just wanted to be all over. I was so vocal, like everyone knew me in school. And so back in Form 3, I remember I just lost everything. I was a prefect in high school. Actually, in our high school, we were called cops. And so there's a sense of power that we had. And I thought for me, that was my identity. So when I lost it all, I was broken. I could not stand. Like one day our class teacher walks in class and she's like, you know what, Yvette, I am stripping you from your position. No grounds of allegations. It's gone. It's gone. And I'm like, how will I survive without this position? And in high school prefects, you have uniforms, you have your own rooms, like you have certain privileges. And now all these privileges were gone. And as if that was enough, that same day I was serving in the CU in evangelism. I'm told I am stripped out of evangelism. So I'm like, God, what is all this? Like I thought for me that those were my identities. Like if you take those things away, I could not stand anymore. And so I remember being given the normal uniform. We used to call them civilian uniform, and moving out of the prefect's room and going to the CU, and I'm just a normal person. I'm no longer leading evangelism. I was broken. Like I could not even figure out. I was like, God, what is not happening? Why am I like this? I remember I even felt sick, the point of you being depressed because something has been taken away. Because these were things I believed were my identity. I couldn't do without them. And I fought a lot to be reinstated, but nothing ever worked out. So for me, during that breaking point is whereby I got to read the book of Pastor T. Mwangi. It's called The Value of a Woman's Worth. And he addresses identity in that point. And he asks, let's say you're a dancer and an accident happens to you and you cannot walk anymore. Does it mean that you've lost your identity because you viewed your identity as a dancer? And I remember that got me to reflect of the things I've lost. And I got to see, actually that is the point I even wrote down the name Idiango as I was reading that book, because Pastor T was addressing identity in a manner I never knew. And I was wondering, what is identity? Because it was like, it means you didn't know who you are. And that's why people rely on their talents. People rely on the titles they have been given. People rely on their families, even on their friends to define who they are. And when these people leave or when these things leave, then a person tends to lose who they are. They no longer have the mirror to their future. I usually say identity is a mirror into your future. And so if you viewed your talents, friends, or the giftings you have as the mirror to your future, then when they are taken away from you, you can no longer stand. So for me, when these things were taken away from me, I could not even walk. Like physically, I was affected, my walking ability. And my dad had to come to school and was like, what is not happening to you? What is going on? And so at that point, God bringing me back on board and showing me, by the way, your identity is not all these titles. Your identity is much more than these titles. And for me, that was my turning point, actually. Yeah.
So you had to go through a process of breaking.
Yeah.
In other words, God had to take everything that you look like. It looked like they were meant to validate you. Sorry for that. So guys, it's getting hot.
It's getting hot here.
So actually, there's a question that has just popped into my mind. There's this phrase where people says, "You lose yourself so that you can find yourself." And I feel like you've gone through that process of even losing yourself, right?
Yeah.
So how can you say what can you say about this phrase?
Actually, it's very much true. Sometimes unless something is taken away from you or unless you lose everything, you can never realize that there's something missing. Especially in the journey of identity. Most people never realize, by the way, sijijui. Until something happens, then a person will be like, oh my God, I really didn't know who I am. Let's say, solely you are into the music ministry, and God forbid something happens to your voice and you can no longer sing. You can just imagine that point. Wait, I cannot sing anymore. So what will I be doing? And so it will be a moment of you've lost yourself, because I believe even for people who love music, that like they usually say, this is my life. Music is my life. So when you take it away, they feel lost. And sometimes God takes these things away for us to find ourselves again. Sometimes I'll use the story of David. Remember the way David fasted and prayed after he had sinned with Bathsheba, and Bathsheba was expecting a child, and the child falls ill. And David he even went into fasting and pray because he had valued this child. He was to be the heir, because he was king. But we see God takes away the child. And David gets to realize, after David losing himself, he had killed Uriah, he had slept with someone's wife, so he had lost himself. And we see after he loses the child, there's an opening that happens to him. In fact, that day that the child dies, he even goes and eats and celebrates. And people are like, when the child was sick, you are what is not happening? But he had found himself at the point of losing himself. So I actually concur with this. At times, God makes you to lose you for you to find yourself again. And it's not everyone who finds themselves again. You just have to be right and understand God's will. Why am I going through this season? Why is God taking things away or taking people away? Why is God breaking me like this? And that way you can be able to find your identity. Yes.
Wow. So, lost sometimes, I think like it will just make you, it will bring you to a point where you have to just reflect on who you are.
Yeah, very true.
You do some things and you're like, yeah, now let me just first of all sit down and ask myself, why is this all happening?
Yes.
And so Yvette, do you think environment, the society, and even the people around us have a role in shaping our identity?
Yeah, they do. Let me tell you one thing. If there is something that makes people even not know who they are, is the environment we live in, the people we interact with, our families, our friends, the things that we have passed through. Actually, they define who we are a lot. And that's why you'll hear things like childhood traumas. You will hear a person say, by the way, me, I'm from a humble background. Sisi hatupitangi level fulani. Because the society they have grown up with has not allowed them to become or see beyond Kibera, let me use. If you've been raised in a slum, I happen to have grown in a slum before. And so while you're raised there, you're raised to be this tough. You're raised to know that our life near gangster. You have to be a gangster to survive. So you see, a person grows with the identity of a gangster because that is where the environment that they have been brought up in. And now we move to family. You find your parent has constantly been telling you that you cannot amount to anything, or that in this family, this is how things happen. So you find even when a person is brought out here, maybe a person joins campus when they are not back at home, and they are seeing a different view of life, they are hearing different opinions, they even tend to be confused because, let's say, mom never told me she loves me. She's meeting a person telling her, by the way, I love you. Or dad never told me he loves me. Now they're meeting people telling them they love them. And so they have a different view of even who they are as an individual. So actually, the environment, the society, the friends we interact with define a lot when it comes to identity. So if a person is not self-aware, then they will be defined by the people or the surrounding around them. Yeah.
Wow. See, there was a friend I was talking to. This guy, he was telling me, I no longer believe in love. So I was like, why is this guy speaking these old things? But I've realized sometimes there's a way society has subjected men into pain.
Yeah.
In a way that love is no longer their language.
Yeah.
Do you know there are people who you cannot speak a language of love to them?
Yes.
Actually, there's a lady, let me just speak of this. There's a lady who can love her heart and she's like, nah, it is off to her.
Yeah.
Because society has subjected her into some, not even a lady, even men. Like there's a way society breaks you in a way that you don't believe in certain things. You understand? So I really concur with you. There was a podcast I was listening from Benny. I think he was giving his story. A story of his friend, actually. So he was saying this friend was into so much sexual addiction. But you see, what really Kenya ilikuwa inafanya umse akuwe into so much sex akuwe a sex addict is the validation he used to get out of ladies. Unapata the names the ladies call him, a king, a what and whatever. You see, if you look at the background of this man, he grew without those words. He never found someone who can affirm him. And so the moment he found a place that he can receive these things, they meant a lot to him. That's why even to parents who have children, sometimes call your children and affirm them, call them powerful names. At least if they go there around, if someone try to do whatever, they are aware of these things. You understand? Thank you so much, Yvette. I think we can go to our next question, whereby can heartbreak, trauma, rejection, and depression, can they also shape on? Can they help, or can they form part of someone finding their identity?
Actually, the things you've mentioned, trauma, heartbreak, rejections, they can really define one's identity in a very big way. Let me tell you, there's this narrative that people have built a wall upon their lives that no one can break into. If someone was rejected by a person that they had loved, or nowadays in the society we say nimecrashia nani, and you go tell him and he's like, I don't love you, or the girl tells the man, I don't want you. So there are people who will start feeling less of themselves when they go through rejection. Or even in their homes, they are not validated, they are not affirmed by their parents. They come to the society, they receive the same, then they will always be, by the way, me, there's no one who loves me in this world. There is no one who cares for me. And so they will build a wall of resistance. Even when someone tries to penetrate with love to them, they'll always resist it because they have experienced rejection and they have always known that they are not worth it. So that is where self-esteem issues come from. And also when we are talking about traumas begin from our families. I usually say this, and if a parent will even get to listen to this podcast, I will say, can we learn to affirm our children in love?
Very true.
Because immediately a child is born, the first person who instills identity is the parent. And so when the parent goes wrong, before even the society or the environment, when the parent goes wrong, then the identity of this child will always be wrong. Until they encounter the truth, that is when maybe the identity can change or shift. So you find we have many traumas in the society, and most of them, when we are talking about our identity, they have been built at home, in the homes we live in. What are your siblings speaking to you? What are your parents saying to you? You know, if you've grown up and your parents are always like you're a useless child, you cannot amount in anything in life. Or even your siblings look down upon you. There are people, we hear people say you have daddy issues, you have mommy issues. Also those who come from broken families or single parenting families or even orphans. But let me tell people this. For you to overcome all this, it is okay if you've passed through all this, but don't allow trauma, rejection, and heartbreak define who you are.
Very true.
I love saying that only the source of you can define who you are, and that is God.
Sure.
And that is God. So if you seek validation from the society will fail you. Your girlfriend, your fiance, your boyfriend, they will fail you. And so you have to be in a position to validate your own life for yourself. Even our parents fail us. At times, mzazi si ati anataka kukwambia hivyo. They have their own issues. Remember, your parents are also grown up in a certain system. So they cannot show what they were never shown. Sure. And so you cannot blame them. Sure. It is for us to take up the mantle and say, I want to know myself. Sure. And where do I begin? I begin with the one who created me first of all, because God is the only person who can show you your true identity. Mentors or people like us here, we can just talk about identity, but the one who will journey you into it is when you find God. Then you begin the journey of discovering who you are. When you read his word, you realize how powerful he's calling you. I love 1 Peter 2:9. It says, but you are a chosen generation, a royal priesthood. God is already telling you who you are, and that is enough. You don't need any other validation. Yes.
A royal priest.
Yeah.
Strong affirmation.
Thank you.
Yeah. So, Yvette, what do you think are the importance of knowing yourself very early? Actually, even you can draw your reference from the Bible.
Yeah. Let me say this. When you know yourself at a very young age, you cannot be manipulated. One thing that you will avoid when you know yourself as a youth, as a young person, is you will avoid being manipulated by the society. Peer pressure will be something that you just hear people say. You won't pass through it because you know who you are. And let me put it this way. I'll use an example of Eve and Jesus. You see, when the serpent appeared to Eve, he or she, I don't know the gender of the serpent, the serpent asked Eve, did God really say? You know, Eve did not know who she is, and that's why she was like, Alishuku. But look at Jesus in the wilderness, and the serpent is tempting Jesus and asking him a similar question to how he asked Eve. But Jesus knew who he is. And he told the devil that you cannot put the Lord your God in test, because he understood who he was. He knew the word of God. So he could not be manipulated by what the devil was telling him.
Very true.
But we see Eve was able to be manipulated because she was confused. Because for her, she knew what Adam had said and maybe partly what God had said. So we see the importance of knowing who you are. First, you'll avoid manipulation. Your friends won't tell you, come, let us drink. Utawambia, no, that is bad, and I know it is bad. You will be able to resist drugs, alcohol, the pressure of even dating. Because when you know who you are, you'll also be able to understand your time and your season. And so no matter what pressure is put on you, God shows you that this is not yet the time for you, and you resist it. The other thing of the importance of knowing who you are is you're able to find purpose.
Very true.
It is very important if we live when we are understanding who we are. For us to find purpose, for us to know why we exist. You cannot find purpose if you have not found your identity. As I said, purpose is the vehicle to identity, but identity drives this vehicle. And so it is very important for you to find your identity, because then you'll find your purpose. You won't even struggle. Once you know your identity, your purpose is aligned. And at the end of the day, you will be complete as an individual. Yes.
That's very nice.
Thank you.
That's why I was looking at the life of Jesus Christ. Jesus Christ at the age of 12.
Yeah.
When his mates were doing, Rusho?
Yeah.
I'm very sure he's in the temple.
Yes.
Building capacity. Because he knew what he was meant to do. Because I'm trying to imagine if he just connected with his mates, Jesus Christ would have missed the purpose that he was called to do.
Yeah. And
so some of us, even sometimes, the things that you are focusing with currently, they are very off from what you are called to do. God is calling you, Yvette, to something. He wants you to be in a season of preparation.
Yes.
But yet, you are ignoring. Yeah. So, Yvette, I have another question.
Okay.
What's the connection between a fulfilled life and a successful life with identity? Yeah.
Now, a fulfilled life and a successful life, and how I connect them with identity. Let me tell you, most of us are trying to fill a vacuum in our lives. You can find a person has everything and they're still telling you they're not fulfilled. A person has money, they have their fame, they have their titles, they are known, but they are telling you that they're not fulfilled. Do you know what is missing in their life? Identity. Identity. They are trying to seek something that cannot be bought by money. They are trying to seek something that cannot be bought by affirmations from friends. They are trying to seek something that even the limelight, the cameras cannot give them. And that is identity. So we are talking about a fulfilled life. The only way you can be fulfilled in life is when you find who you are. That is the only way you can be fulfilled in life. And that is how they are even connected. And that's why you'll find big people. There's a singer that sang a song and alikuwa anasema yote ni vanity. Bila Yesu ni vanity. And I was wondering why this person sang this song at a point when he had everything. Like, people, he's a person angefika mahali and everyone is rushing to him and everything. I listened to him and he said one thing he realized, he had worked hard in life to achieve all these things, to drive the best car, the latest car, to acquire the best house in town. And so he thought that he will be fulfilled or he will be successful when he has all this. But he realized that all these things, there's something missing, and that is, who am I? And that is identity. And I remember listening to him and he was saying once he understood who he is, that's when he released that song. Because by him finding his source, that is God, and that's why I say bila Yesu ni vanity. Because him finding Jesus led him to him being fulfilled and even living a fulfilled life. And I even got to understand the scripture that says Jesus is the way, the truth, and the life. Because for your life to be successful and fulfilled, you have to find the way. And there's only one way, and that is Jesus. And there's only one truth for you to find your identity, that is Jesus. And then once you find all this, he concludes by saying he's the life. Then you will have your life complete. Yes.
That's so nice.
Thank you.
So my next question, Yvette, do you think identity is how you see yourself or how other people see it? Yes.
Actually, I love that question because your identity is all about you. Your identity is not about how people see you at all. And I've had many speakers say, you know, how people see you is important. Yes, I agree. But your identity, it's a me thing. It's all about you as an individual. It's all about you finding yourself, not the society finding yourself for you. And that's why people tend to be confused when they rely on others to help them find their identity. Because Solia will come to you and you will tell me, by the way, Yvette, you are a very good dancer, so I think you should put your energy into dancing. You go home, my mom tells me, Yvette, you're a very good speaker. Why don't you venture into public speaking? So you get so many voices in church. They say, by the way, you're a very good worshiper. Come and worship the Lord. So you're like, Sasa mini nani? Mini worshiper, mini dancer, mini speaker. Who am I? So when you rely on others, everyone is telling you something that they love to see about you or something that they have seen. So you tend to be confused at the end of the day when you sit yourself down, you're like, by the way, Mary said this, Peter said this, John said this. But at the end of the day, what are you saying to yourself?
Sure.
Because all their definitions will just lead you to be confused. They will lead you to be, you cannot be all that they have said.
And one thing you have to understand, that people will never hype you every day.
Yes, they never hype you every day. Other days will be told, but then you're very useless.
Imagine.
Or you're very stupid. Or whether you won't go far with this thing, you know. So it actually comes from the point of you defining yourself for yourself. And that's why I'm really emphasizing on you finding God. Because that is the only way you'll be able to define your life and also find your identity as a person. I'm not saying other people's opinion are not important, because there are times when the people's opinion actually shed some light to your journey of identity. So what I'll say is, be careful of what you listen to. Be careful of what people are telling you. You can also negate people's opinion, even if they're negative or positive. Sometimes negative opinions, or when a person says something that seems to be so hard or harsh on you, you need to sit yourself down and ask yourself, why did this person actually say this? Is it out of jealousy or is it actually out of truth?
Very true.
So even as you're defining yourself as an individual, don't be selfish also to shut other people's opinion out. I usually say how you balance that is by you being a computer. Giggle, garbage in, garbage out. So if something is garbage, take it out. If something can be processed, it has come as garbage, but it can actually be processed into truth, then actually adapt it. Because some negativities build you up. They build you up. They show you, by the way, someone tells you, unakwanga unaringa sana. And maybe you've never seen that part of you. You can actually work on it and be better. Yeah.
In other words, you know how to feed on everything.
Yes, exactly.
You have to question, like you have to meditate on what people say. There's something you've talked about, actually even to advices people give you. Do you know there are people who will give you advice out of envy.
Yeah.
Imagine Yvette. Actually, there are people who can give you advice out of pain.
Yes.
Someone tried something and he or she failed. And now you're like, you see, there's something I want to try. I don't know whether it will work, but it's like, nah, don't try that. You see, this person is advising you out of pain. They tried and it failed. So sometimes you have to know what you want and what you really meant to be. Okay, now Yvette, at what point does a person comes and he or she now says that, I think now I've okay, I know it's very hard sometimes to know yourself, but at what point at least can you reach and you say, I can say at least I've discovered myself.
So let me say, the point for you to reach and say, by the way, I know who I am and I know what I stand for. I have found me. I have found my identity. It is a lifetime journey. Identity is actually a lifetime journey. It is the point of Jesus on the cross saying it is finished. Let me put it that way. It is the point of Jesus when he said it is finished. That is the point of you having found yourself. And that was his end point. That is our end point as individuals. Because each and every day in your journey of identity, God is showing you a version of yourself that you didn't know of. When you look at yourself in the mirror, another version of you is appearing. So that's why I've said identity is not about the talents. Identity is not about the courses or the career you are in. Identity is not about the person you will marry or the person you are dating, because these are things that will be taken away. And identity is something that is permanent, something that cannot be taken away from you, something that you cannot lose. And that's why I usually say to people that actually your identity is constant, and it is that you are a child of God. Once you adopt that language, then you stay tuned to the fact of experiencing how God is revealing you to you each and every day. And so I usually say hakuna time itafika. Let's say I reach maybe 25 and I'm like, I know who I am, you know. There are people who believe that I will by 25 I'll have found my identity. But actually, even you can realize by 40 you haven't even found you yet, because every day identity is a constant learning journey. And that's why it's very important for you to work with one version, that I am a child of God. And in it, then God begins to show you other versions of you. Aside from the gifts, talents, and strengths he has given us, there is more to you than all these other things. Yeah.
I'm just thinking. Actually, I feel like identity also can define your value.
Yeah.
I can bring this analogy. The reason as to why we pursue gold, it is because of what gold really is. So there's a level at which you know yourself in a way that you don't need again to go to people. You just attract them.
Yeah. Yeah.
So wow, that is very important to discover yourself.
Yeah. Let me add something to what you've said, that there's a level to which you know who you are until you begin attracting people. I love saying that identity attracts and connects, because the moment people hear you speak, and if you're a person who knows who they are, then they will begin following you. And that's why you see Jesus. He did not need to publicize himself and say, I am Jesus, the Son of God. What was attracting people to him is identity. And I usually say identity is light, and light attracts. And so what was making Jesus even an entire city, if a woman was cooking, angeacha kupika, afuate Yesu. It was because of the virtue that the light, the identity he had was light. And so it was attracting people to even follow him. So once you find who you are, then people will always follow you. People will never, you won't need to even put a poster or a banner that you're doing something. People will just, but then she's doing a meeting or he's doing a meeting here, and they just come because they have been able to connect. That's why nimesema identity, it not only attracts but also connects. Like people are able to connect to you from a heart to heart level. Yeah.
Yvette, there are these moments whereby you really don't know what you want. You don't know what you'll go for. How can you call these moments?
Okay. Now, that is what we call identity crisis.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, the moment where you're confused. You don't know what you want. You don't know who you are. You don't know what you believe in anymore. You don't know even where you're going anymore. And there's a season after high school, I actually thought, I know who I am, I know what I want. But now, after high school, I was seated and I was like, where am I really going? What do I really want to do with my life? And I was in a crisis. My parents could come and they're like, what is the next plan? And I'm telling them, I have no plan. You plan for me. Because as it stands, I have no plan. And so those are moments where we call them, you're in a crisis, self-crisis. Other people call it identity crisis. And you're just trying to figure things out. And these moments can really make people be depressed to the point of them not even coming out of it. There are people who stay in identity crisis even for a lifetime, till they go 6 feet under. There are people who stay in identity crisis for years, till they run mad. If you have been in a mental institution, you'll get to realize that most people there did not go mad because of, let's say, illness, or because of, people believe maybe dark powers, but some of them, it was because of identity crisis. Like, they were just tired of life. They were tired of not knowing who they are or what they stand for. So their entire system shut down. And so that is actually identity crisis.
Wow.
Yeah.
So I have a popping question.
Yeah.
So Yvette, what is that one thing that really broke your heart, but again it shaped your identity?
Tumekuwa personal sasa. Wow. That one thing that broke my heart and that shaped my identity is when I lost my little sister. That child was literally my life. She was literally my everything, let me put it. And if there's something that hurt me, is losing her at a point when I had put all my faith and trust in God. And at a point of even I was building my relationship with God, and I knew there's nothing that is too hard for God to do. And she died suddenly. It was like we were with her on Sunday in church, and by Sunday 4 p.m., she's gone. She's no more. And I remember telling God, you know what? This is, me and you are done. How could you do this to me? This was literally a child. She didn't deserve to go in the way she went. She didn't deserve to die like this. And for me, that was so hard. That it was a very hard season for me even to come out to. I remember I shut everyone out because even in our family, it was so much of blame games. Where were you when this happened? Why didn't you look after the child well? And so I was like, God, I cannot do this anymore. I cannot. But still, I remember at this same point, God picking me up and telling me to stand again. And me understanding it's not about my will, but His will. And yes, there are seasons we will go through that seem like, God, why? Why did you allow this happen? And I have been faithful. But we really need to understand that at times God will take you through the fire to refine you. When He says in Isaiah 43 that He will be with you through the fire, the waters, He actually means it.
Very true.
And in a journey of identity, I will say, be ready to go through pain. Be ready to be broken, to be found again. Be ready to cry. Be ready to be embraced back again, and be ready to stand.
Very true.
Be ready to be the standard again, because in your journey of finding your identity, you will fight so many voices.
Very true.
You will fight so many situations. But in everything that God takes you through, let you never lose yourself in the process.
Wow.
Yes.
I think this will be our last question.
No worries.
Okay, for people who we can't ignore this.
Yeah.
Understand, life happens, right? So for people who feel like they have lost themselves, what advice can you give them? Yeah, even as they try to rediscover themselves, because at times you find yourself like you literally feel like I've messed it all, right? So for you, what advice can you give these people? Yeah.
Okay, so for people who are out there and you feel like I've lost me, I cannot do this anymore. I cannot do life anymore. I am confused. I don't know who I am. I don't know where I belong. I don't even know the state of my heart currently. This is the advice I'll give to all of you out there. Take a break. Take a break from it all. It is okay to take a break.
Very true.
It is okay to take a break. And in as much as you're low, stand again. Pick yourself up again, because nobody will pick you up. Nobody will pick you up. At that point, it is the point of you being like David. I love that man so much. And even as you are in those dust and ashes, you stand again. You go back to the shower, you clean yourself up. There's this phrase I'll use, although people use it to mean other things. Oga urudi soko. You know, because you just have, there's an inner drive, there's an inner pull that we all have within us, even at the moments whereby we are down. Let us release that power within. Let us release that power within, and you tell yourself, we are doing this again. You try again. Even when it seems like it's not working out, you fall, you stand again. You fall, you stand again. Someone once says, a winner is a loser who never quits. A winner is a loser who never quits. Because you realize something about winning. The people who are winners, they have actually been down 1,000,000 times over again.
Very true.
Elon Musk says that right now the world sees him as the most wealthiest, the most richest. But it was because he learned to pick himself up every time he falls, or every time he invests into a project and loses a lot, and he loses everything, and he had no one. He says that at that point, he was releasing an inner energy and telling himself to stand again. Tunapendaga KFC, but we realize the founder of KFC, he experienced so many rejections. He could make chicken, go to a hotel, he's sent out and he's told how bad it is. But right now, KFC branches are all over the world, and his story is spreading, and yet he's already dead. So let us learn to rise up again, even when we fall. Do not give up. Do not lose hope. Life may not be lifing, but do you know what? Your identity will make you stand through it all. Yes.
My word to you guys is that sometimes it might not seem like it, but never give up.
Yeah, exactly.
They also say that quitters
never win. Yeah.
Right? So thank you so much, Yvette, for having you. I'm so much privileged. I'm so honored.
Thank you.
So guys, it's your boy SollyBless Africa, and I'm so blessed today. Have a nice time. See you next time.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you.